Alright, welcome to the video. I haven't made one of these before, so bear with me. This is a tier list on frame viability for level capping. I have seen other videos, other tier lists that are just like not good. A lot of them either have like misinfo, or it's obvious that the person has not played the frame, or they just skew their ranking based on one factor, like just completely ignoring other things, or just not realizing the use of certain things that the frame has, or their biases are just really apparent. So I'm trying to avoid that, but of course nobody is truly unbiased, especially when it comes to a video game tier list. So I'm trying my best. Now, again, this is specifically for level cap viability, and the criteria is more for disruption, cascade, and survival is like the primary three, and then circuit and excavation I decided to put in because circuit is often people's first or only level capping, but it is not a primary place that I'd rank them. It's not what I would use to like determine who's good or not, because there are some frames who are really fun and really good in circuit, but just like kind of okay elsewhere. So just adding that. I do most of my level caps on disruption, but I've done a lot of cascade level caps, and I've done like 2 survival level caps. So I understand what it takes to do those lesser ones, but this is coming from more of disruption and cascade, and I've done plenty of circuit level caps with plenty of different frames. I've taken almost pretty much just Lavos that I haven't taken into high endurance. That's where I'm at. I've played this game for quite a while. Let me see. Yeah, 5,584 hours. So I guess just trust me, bro. Another factor is group play versus solo play. Solo level capping is totally valid, but personally, I do like to do group level caps. I've done plenty of solo level caps as well, but I think a lot of frames are designed around playing with groups. Like Trinity, for example. I think Trinity is very good. She excels very much in a team. Nobody is going to complain about having a Trinity in a level cap. Very handy, right? She gives all the free energy and can help you shield gate without you having to do anything. It would be kind of rude to rank her lower, just if you assume that she's solo. So if they benefit others in a group, I would rank them higher because that is valuable. Like going level cap alone is, a little boring. It's often slower. If you're going to level cap, it is usually for like the rewards or something. So if you can get up there faster, that is helpful, and supports make that easier and often make it quicker. So that's an important factor. The other two, which I think are applicable to every frame in the game, is how do you deal your damage, how do you survive. Those are the 2 primary things that you have to answer with your loadout overall, not just the frame. This tier list is just focusing on the frames, but what weapons are you bringing, how do you kill the demolishers, how do you kill the thraxes, how do you kill hordes of enemies. In every mode there's always hordes of enemies. How do you deal with it all, right? And what frames are best at like dealing with everything? What frames are best at completing the mission quicker? What frames are able to survive well? But it's not just if you can do one of those things. You have to be able to do it like one or multiple things really well, right? Of course, for survival, there's things like Vazarin dashing, which is applicable to every frame. Every frame can use Vazarin, which is pretty important in my opinion. I always take Vazarin as like a backup, but if you can go without using it, or especially without spamming it, it is very helpful. And then the other thing is weapons, right? There's a lot of weapons that can clear hordes really well, like Torrid and Karnon, or Glaive Prime. Those are 2 very popular options that the community overall enjoys using. But they're not gonna kill demolishers or thraxes as fast as a dual toxicist or something. Like there are weapons that can deal plenty of damage to kill single targets or kill groups, but a lot of the fun in level capping, which I think most people who have done a level cap would agree, is taking different loadouts and taking all those things. So you're not going to expect, Revenant with Torrent Incarnate dual toxicist and Praetos. You're not going to expect that loadout every time, right? If that was the case, then like, okay, cool. But this is for fun. At the end of the day, this game is for fun. And the last thing I want to preface, every frame can go to level cap. It's not impossible. Every frame can do it. The difference between the ranks from D to S+, and there are frames in every rank, is how easy is it to do that? How much value does the frame bring to the loadout, and how much, fun isn't part of the rank, but I will mention like frames that I do enjoy particularly. But these are my opinions that I try to make with a little bias, and all ranks are relative to other frames. So no, these frames aren't in a vacuum. If this were like a different game, like every single Warframe is very strong. There's a lot of power fantasy in this game. So you may feel strong with your main, but everything's strong, to be honest. Like go try other things, right? I don't like to call myself any particular main, though I do play a lot of Volt, but that's just me, and I still level cap with a bunch of other frames too. Okay, with that out of the way, I ranked Trinity, so I'll just say why I think she's good. Her 1, great source of healing, keeps people alive, especially now after the rework. It's able to revive allies who down themselves near it, and it can pick them up. I think it's once per person per cast, which is really good, but it's like preemptive, so you have to expect it. Either way, though, it's very easy to just have your 1 out to do that. Her 2 is free energy for everybody, which is insanely good. So that means Trinity herself has infinite energy. They've also changed it, so it's now just a one-handed cast, which is really good, and it's recastable to change the target that it's casted on. This is also a source of true damage, so she has really good single target damage just built in, and she has some nuking stuff with some subsumes. I mean, Roar helps as well with true damage, stuff like that. Her 3, in my opinion, I subsume that off. It is an armor strip with the augment, but I just don't find that too helpful for me. It is just damage reduction, and that doesn't help at level cap. Her 4 is also damage reduction for everybody, and shield gates them, brings them back to full health. Very good ability. It's the oh shit button. So she has her means of survival. She doesn't have the means for dealing great damage like quickly, but other than single target with her 2. But she is very good, right? And the most important thing that I wanted to point out is that all of her abilities pretty much affect allies, except for her 3. But her 1, 2, and 4 all help allies a lot, and everybody will appreciate having those abilities around them, right? So Trinity, absolutely A tier. I think she does what she does really well. And A tier is like, just because they're not S doesn't mean they're bad. A tier I think is great. Like these are fun frames. I've taken Trinity to level cap in Cascade and in Circuit multiple times. Great. I love her. I'm going to start with the D tier actually, because I think the frames that are down here really are like the worst to level cap, and I'm going to go over why I think that. Let's see. These are not ordered. Okay, there we go. Oberon and Corvex. Both of these characters, honestly, they just suffer. So Corvex has the nice benefit of being able to give allies status immunity, but at level cap, status immunity is really just do you have knockdown immunity? Because you're not going to survive whatever it is that's putting the proc on you. Or if you are, then that attack is probably not scaling with enemy level. Like the Nox death bubbles, that like the toxin clouds that they leave when they die, that doesn't scale with their level. You will probably just survive that with your raw HP alone, and then you'll end up picking health orbs as you go until the next Nox. So those toxin procs are not a big deal, right? So status immunity doesn't help there. It's really just knockdown immunity, because those count as status effects, which is like Prime Sure-Footed exists. You can get knockdown immunity from other sources. Some frames just have it built in. You can Overguard Gate and have a little bit of knockdown immunity there. That you can bring you Neru if you really need it, if you feel like you have other means to survive, or if you're not too reliant on Vazarin. It's nice, but it's not gonna bring him to C by itself. His other problem is that his other 3 abilities are just damage, but they're not even good damage. So you have to invest a lot to get those abilities to kill a level cap. To do what? And it's not important that abilities have to kill a level cap, as I'll go into with the S+ ranking. But they just don't do anything. You have to lock yourself into using some of these abilities too, like the chest beam, that locks you down into that decision. It doesn't help. So when Corvex goes to level cap, you're pretty much going to level cap despite being Corvex, rather than Corvex actually helping you with your loadout. I don't like taking him. I've taken him to level 2000, but it's just blah. It was boring. Oberon, on the other hand, he has a way to nuke with his first ability. And again, it's not that important that your abilities can nuke. But then the other problem is his Hollowed Ground and his Reckoning, or the healing. They don't do anything. So his 3 is a source of ally healing for you and your allies, and can give armor with the 2. But again, this is level cap. You're just going to get one shot. If anything touches your health, the red part of your health bar, you die. There's very few things that you can actually survive at that level. And again, those things are probably not scaling with enemy level. So he also has a source of status immunity with the grass. That's cool. And he also has an armor strip using his 4 and 2, but his abilities are clunky. They lock him down. His methods of survival are, again, just Vazarin, just like Corvex. And shield gating is not that great. And his 1 nuke, the amount of investment that you have to do to get that to nuke, it's a little annoying. He ends up, at the end of the day, just always being a worse Wisp. He has less buffs, and his 1 nuke is pretty much just what Breach Surge does without needing as many buffs. And Breach Surge is way better because it also offers a lot of CC. So I'll go over the S tier, who I think is S tier now. Let's see, where are they? So I'll start with Gauss, because I think he's very representative of the philosophy that I use to rank. He's got 2 great ways to survive. His passive is very helpful for shield gating and just keeping your shields up so that you can keep being immune. And he's very fast. That is great for survivability. That is great for completing missions faster. It is just very, very helpful to be fast. He's not the fastest frame. He's not even the second fastest frame, but he's still very quick, and that is very helpful when going to level cap, especially if you want to do it quickly in a casual setting, right? And his 2 gives him one of the very few sources of 100% damage resistance, but it's only to the physical elements and then heat, cold, and blast, which is 90% of what you're going to be hit with. There's certain infested enemies, there's Nox, and then if you're in disruption, there's enemy toxin weapons. or enemy electric weapons. That's it. That's all that's gonna like hurt Gauss, right? But even then, even when you take like that electric damage, you have your shields, and he's good at shield gating. So really, you just have to watch out for toxin enemies. And if you're doing like an infested level cap, you probably already know what you're going to be using, because that's like really infuriating. Anyways, he's also really good at killing enemies. He's got amazing weapon buffs, so you can take about just about any weapon to level cap if you want. Not everything, but he's got the damage, right? And then thermal sunder nuking, one of very few frames that can nuke to level cap and also like nuke to damage cap if enemies could survive it. Very, very strong. He's got options. Like, he's got options with how he wants to approach like building and how he wants to approach playing, and that'll change what you want to do. Very versatile. Good in all the popular methods of level capping. Good augments with thermal transfer, stuff like that. Personally, I subsume over his 1 because he just is naturally fast. The 1 is kind of deceptive because it makes you feel fast because of the zoom out that it does, but you're not actually running as fast as you think. Really, just rely on his sprint speed. Dude, he'll take you flying. Like, he's great. The other one is Octavia right here. S plus for sure. These S plus tiers, people in here are like meta defining. They do exactly what you need a frame to do and more, right? Octavia is the best frame at survival level capping. Absolutely. I don't see any way, like any other view on it. She can just kill rooms of enemies for as long as her mallet is up, and that's insane, because that thing will just sit there for a whole minute or longer depending on your duration. And her 3 is one of the only sources of a multi-shot buff that she can also give allies. Also permanently invis. Invisibility in this game is the second best form of survivability, right behind invincibility, right? But the thing with invisibility is when you go invisible, so does your companion. And so you get those bond mods like Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond that'll keep you or give you those damage buffs, right? So having invisibility baked into the kit can allow you to use companions other than Worm Prime to maintain the Reinforced Bond fire rate buff, which is very nice. And then on top of that, her 3 just makes you faster too. So she's all around the place. She also makes allies faster. It's the ally buffing part is like, if you know that you are next to an Octavia, you can really like take advantage of her 3 and get those buffs. When you aren't expecting one, or when you're like hyper mobile, like in a disruption, you're not relying on it, but it's great when it's like you're both sitting in the same room or like between rounds and you just crouch spam really quick and now you're invisible as an ally. Very nice, very handy, right? Third one I think is top is Volt. I think this might be biased, but he's definitely around here. I think he's up here. Volt is the fastest, right behind Titania, but the thing is he has the damage to back up his speed and he has the methods to survive. So his 1 on its own is not, in my opinion, not that great. It is a form of CC, but it's not that helpful. It's the augment, right? Shock Trooper, ever since melee influence has been added, it's been insane. Now, I want to acknowledge there is a bug right now. I hope it's a bug where Shock Trooper is not buffing the damage of electricity procs that you deal, right? It's just increasing your weighting. They changed it so it didn't combine, which is fine. That just changes the builds that you're going to be using slightly, like one mod maybe. And they made it so it just doesn't help the electric proc status damage, which is honestly like a 4 times DPS. Like you cut your elect proc DPS to a quarter. Like it hurts. So if that is a bug, and we say that that gets patched, easily S plus. If they keep it around for 2 updates, I think that drops him in the A tier, in my opinion. I think Shock Trooper is what makes him very strong, but that's not his only like tool in his shed, right? His 2 speeds up allies, speeds up you, gives you some free reload speed and melee damage. If you're playing around a melee, like for melee influence, very helpful, right? Again, speed helps you level cap faster in a casual setting, and it helps you get to where you need to be, and it helps you stay alive. Because if you can, get away from that large group of enemies, or if you can just run through them faster than the AI can turn around and shoot at you, you're gonna survive, right? His 3 shield, another very strong, very, very strong ability. This is one of the few ways to protect defense objects from damage, and it doesn't have a health bar. It just blocks projectiles straight up, right? And it lasts for as long as your duration allows it to. It sticks around like easily over a minute. But any projectile from an ally that is shot through has its crit damage doubled multiplicatively. So if you, after mods, are at a 10x multiplier, shooting through that shield will take you to 20x. And something I do want to mention, this doesn't work on glaives. So Falcor and Zorus, they don't benefit from the shield. They do benefit from Shock Trooper, or at least did before the bug, but they don't benefit from the shield. I'm pretty sure Contagion does, but I don't think that's all that helpful. And then that leads us into his 4 ability, very solid CC. It's a long cast animation. He's an old frame. Long cast animations kind of were like a pattern, really. But the augment is a very helpful source of shield gating for you and your allies. Any enemies that take damage from it will just give you and nearby allies shields based on the damage taken. But the special thing about capacitance is that there's no cooldown of when you take those shields. So if you just recently got your shields hit off, that will still allow you to like regen it back. So because the 4 pulses outwards like that, enemies are hit in like at different times. It doesn't hit them all instantly. The damage ticks that it deals are very like desynced, so you're getting rapid amounts of very small shields. But the minimum shield gating is like 0.3 seconds. So as long as you regen at least 1 point of shield every 0.3 seconds, you're immune. So it works pretty much exactly like Arcane Aegis. As long as you hit like, I don't know, 10 enemies, maybe less, probably like 5. You're gonna be invincible for as long as your 4 is dealing damage to them, right? So he can handle groups of enemies and use them as a form of survival for him and his allies. This is also great in Circuit because it just helps everybody survive. And in Circuit, often the difficult part is the excavation. That is what people like quit over. That's usually where they're like, oh, this is going to take forever. Volt can protect those level cap excavation targets, right? Because the shield. Very, very strong frame. Usable like everywhere. Let's see. Where is the other one? Saren. Saren might seem like a weird pick, but there's a reason to it. She has the damage. She has the most DPS of any frame given whatever loadout, right? Toxic Lash is so strong. It's insane. And she also has Venom Dose. So ever since those green shards were added, she now has a form of full strip, which is pretty much built in, right? And so Saren is the fastest runner for doing level cap disruption, and that is at least commendable, right? For surviving, you do kind of want Vazarin, but she's also really good at shield gating with her 2 and brief respite, because her 2 is one of the few instant cast abilities. And I forgot to mention that on Volt as well. His 2 is also an instant cast, which is great for shield gating if you end up subsuming off your 4 on Volt. Saren gets to subsume off her 4 for Roar, which is insanely strong with Toxic Lash, because faction damage triple dips on the Toxin proc from Lash, and it double dips on the raw damage of Toxic Lash. It's very, very strong. Her survivability, Molt distracts enemies, which is a form of protection, like a form of indirect CC. This is the only thing that can really, in quotation marks, CC Maximus units. That is very helpful, and it's built into her kit, and it also makes her faster when she uses it. Very strong. I think it is deserving of S+ tier, because the better you are, the more you'll realize Saren will just do what you want to do, but faster. Peak of the meta, in my opinion. The other one that I wanted to put up there is Wisp. This is more because of a squad focus. Wisp is one of the few frames that can buff allies that can basically keep those buffs up permanently. And that's simply by just putting them in key doorways. So when you're doing Disruption or Cascade, there's only so many rooms, right? You're going through the same areas back and forth very fast. So as long as your duration's like high enough, and it doesn't need to be that high, like 170, 200%, maybe less, is enough. You have 6 motes that you can have out, and in level cap, the health mote does nothing for you. So you might as well swap that, or use that as a chance to just put only haste motes or haste and electric motes. It depends. If your squad is really nitpicky about spawns and things, or like KPM, like in survival, don't use that electric mote. But if it's like a more casual level cap, it helps everybody stay alive because they just passively have that CC coming off of them. Very nice. And the fire rate is insane. It also gives the movement speed, also insane. Melee attack speed, great. So Wisp makes everybody just run faster and everything. And that's just one of her abilities. Her second ability, that's her survivability right there. She goes invisible when she casts it, and then she goes immune when you teleport to it. So if you just cast it and teleport to it really fast, bam, 3 seconds of invulnerability right there. So you can use that as a form of rolling guard. Very, very helpful. And her passive also makes her invisible when she goes in the air, but that one's a little weird because even if your guns are silenced, you're still revealed when you shoot them, but any melee is still invisible. So you can use that as a way to use glaives on her. So she's really easy to survive with if using a glaive to deal with hordes. I think she is deserving of the S+ tier because often teams will change their builds to swap something over fire rate if they expect to have a Wisp, because the fire rate buff she gives is like easily over 90%, easily over what one mod can provide. Insanely valuable frame. Anybody would love to have her on the team for level capping. One thing I should mention about Volt as well is that the 3 shield is a way to boost operator damage, and that's important against Thraxes, because for everyone else except for like Jade, they need Matarai to be able to deal with the Thrax ghosts at level cap because of how much health they have at that point in scaling. You can do some stuff with Zenuric too, but either way, in terms of survivability, changing off Vazarin is a risk, and Volt has that way to double operator damage, and because of that, he gets to use Vazarin, and that's a key way to survive. But he can also use that as an excuse to use Uneru if you want. Either way, that makes his operator school an option, like a flexible slot. Very nice. Let's see. Zephyr. I don't have much fun with Zephyr, but she's got the damage. She's got the survivability. The projectiles do not hit Zephyr. She has that wind stream. Just nothing will touch her. She's fast with the 1, and and she has the damage with the tornadoes. She's like a really, really good frame. Is she that crazy in disruption? Not really. I think that's more of a problem with the tile sets rather than Zephyr specifically. Like the popular disruptions aren't really, Zephyr friendly, but she has the damage and she can survive, and at the end of the day that is what matters. So I think she deserves to be up there. I don't think she's put her at the end just because like she's not as hypermobile as Volt. She's not like nuking rooms constantly like Octavia is, but she is able to kill rooms effortlessly, and her windstream thing that makes projectiles not touch her, she can just stand on top of an excavator, and then that excavator is now just not taking damage. So very strong. I think she deserves a spot up here because I think she is a little better than what I would put in the S tier, and I think that's worth it. Let's see, S tier, Dido 9 for sure. Newest frame, very strong. Kind of wants to play solo, but that's fine. He can play with the group if the group's not like killing all that fast, I guess. I don't know. He doesn't really want to play with the group. It's more headaches if you do, but solo level capping totally valid. His 1 and his 2 are ways to buff your damage a lot, and his neutralizer is just like insane. They finally made a good sniper rifle and they put it on one character. Like that's really all it takes, isn't it? And he, one headshot and I can kill other targets. And gosh, the amount of damage on this guy. He doesn't die. Neutralizer is inherently silenced. And you can also do builds where you subsume off neutralizer if you want to use normal weapons. Stuff with high magazines, or ammo efficiency, or just stuff that wants to take advantage of primary crux. These are all really, really good weapons to use on him. But the way I see it is either you put Roar over, or can you do Roar? I forget. I haven't put a subsume on him. But either you put a damage boosting subsume over his 4 because you're committing to not using the neutralizer, or you don't subsume anything and you just use the neutralizer. So those are kind of your options, and both of them are very good. And he works, man. He puts in some freaking work. Ashe, also S tier for similar reasons. Ashe is kind of like Loki, but he does stuff on top, right? Loki has a longer form of invisibility, but Ashe, his 2 augment allows him to make other people invisible. Not that you probably have the range to do that, but it's an option. Like if someone's like, oh shit, and I want to go invisible, or like if they get downed, you can revive them, and then if the timer allows it, you can make them invisible. Very solid, right? His 1 can be an armor strip. It's very weak. Plus his passive is the slash boosting thing. You're picking Ashe if you intend to use slash status effects to kill stuff. Very good. His 3 is a way to get finishers. His 4 is also a way to stack up crescendo. I think that's a red herring. I think you subsume over the 4 for Roar and then use precision intensify. And if you wanted the crescendo stacks, you're going to be using the 3, right? Like that opens enemies up to finishers, and then you just press X and finish them. So, or you just use Vazarin, use the 2, and use finishers that way, right? There's a lot of ways you can do this. Ashe is just able to take advantage of it, right? And he buffs weapons, buffs slash status effects, easily slots Roar. Solid frame, even though he pretty much has like 2 abilities plus a subsume. If you want to do a Bladestorm build, go ahead. I don't think it's that good at level cap. I don't think it holds up. The speed that it kills isn't fast enough for survival, so you kind of need like a Necros to sit there with you so that enemies drop enough life supports to sustain yourself. But it can kill level cap enemies. It's just not like fast enough. It's not satisfying. And then if you take it into disruption or whatever, it's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you using a weapons platform at that point? Like, he's really good at it. The other frame I would say is S tier is the other new frame. Dante. Oh my god. The community just keeps saying he's busted. He is very strong. Don't get me wrong. He definitely belongs in S tier. Great with a team, supports allies amazingly, and he can nuke rooms. He's pretty much like Octavia if you just didn't have to like crouch spam or shoot next to her, whatever. And he has like a little bit of Trinity because the overguard gating. He's not the best at any one thing he does, but he does it all, like all the things that he does in his kit really well. And anyone in the squad would like to have him. There's not much else to be said. Like, if you know how to use him, you know how to use him. His book can help you prime more elements. It's also a grimoire, so you can get the grimoire bonus effect. Solid frame. All right, where's Rhino? Rhino, I think, pretty easy to say. We're going to be hearing a lot about Roar as a subsume. There's not a lot of other options for a lot of frames. His 2 is a very good form of survivability. At level cap, it's different from base star chart where you just, press 2 and you don't die, or base steel path where you press 2 and you might have to recast it 2 or 3 more times before you hit the end of the mission. At this point, it becomes just a really good shield gating ability because it gives you that overguard gating, and if you let enemies hit you in those 4 seconds of invulnerability after casting, it can end up being insane, and you can survive for like 20 seconds. Either way, it's coming down a lot, but when you cast it, it gives you a ton of survivability. So he's got survivability in check. Roar is 50% on him. He's got the damage in check. So that allows him to subsume stuff like Pillage over his 1, or Nourish, or Shock Trooper if they fix that bug, or Thermal Transfer. I mean, it's kind of whatever you want. He's just there. Like, he loves the changes with Overguard. He can buff allies if they stand close. He's also got great augments, and I haven't even mentioned his 4 yet. His 4 is also amazing CC with an insane 25 meter base radius. So even if you just stay at like 79% duration, or like with narrow-minded and stretch alone, it's still big enough to CC a room. Like, it's crazy. And then you have the 4 augment, which helps keep his 2 up and healthy. It's not that helpful, in my opinion. But his 3 augment, Piercing Roar, very strong. It primes enemies with puncture. It knocks them down so that they're CC'd. And it gives the Roar 40% more range, which is like really nice. So it allows you to build a little more range on the one ability that needs it in his kit. And that's like super helpful. Great damage. Again, supports allies. Definitely S tier, and I don't think it's going to change. Who else? Oh, where is he? Zaku. Zaku survives really well because of his passive and his 4. His passive is that he just dodges 75% of shots that are at him, or I guess 75% dodge chance, more specifically. Great, great way to survive. That means when you are trying to shield gate, you're getting hit less, so you can kind of like, you're not spamming it as much. Not that you want to be spamming shield gating, but he can pretty lazily just sit there and generate shields by just doing what he wants to do. He's got the damage, especially against groups. For single targets, like in disruptions, it's not as great, but his 2 can still kill demolishers. You're probably gonna want a form of armor strip with him. Well, he has Zada's Whisper too. That's also that's pretty much just Toxic Lash, but not quite as good. It's also very strong. He's got the damage. He can do it all. He's a little more selfish. Is he buffing people? Not really, but you can just run through whatever you want to do, and Saku will just do it kind of passively. The other one, where is he? Sevagoth. He's one of very few frames that can use abilities to nuke level cap. He can survive just because of his like how strong his passive is with the whole dying thing, and he's got the damage because obviously he can nuke level cap. But even against single targets, as long as you afflict them with the shadow, you have like they get debuffed to take larger crits. So it's just like I don't know, bring a nuke core or whatever, and then just beam them. Bam, they're dead. He's got the damage. He can survive. He can shield gate easily. He's got Gloom for great CC. I subsume over the 4 using that second frame thing. It's a little annoying, but whatever. That's it for S tier. I think like these are very strong. All of these characters, like if you're gonna do solo, any of them can perform. They all have ways to survive that are good. They all have ways to kill that are good. And I think everybody underneath is lacking in some area, or is good at only one of the things. Now, I know what y'all are gonna say because I didn't put Revenant in S tier, so he's in A tier, right? He's got a similar thing with Trinity where he's got the true damage, but he can do this like he can one shot level cap with Reeve pretty easily. But the problem is it's his subsume. Rhino does it better. And is that a reason to dock him? Not really, but it's like the amount of strength you would need is just it's not feasible. Not a lot of people like to use his one. I don't really like to use his one. It's helpful. They take fire, but Revenant doesn't care. He presses 2 and he doesn't die, and that's why you play him. I will say, if you are bad at the game, like if you want to do a level cap and you don't think you can, or you're looking for like, oh, how do I do my first one? Don't get comfortable with it, but Revenant will take you there. Octavia will also easily take you there. You're going to fall asleep halfway through. But Revenant will take you there. All right? So if you're like dog shit at the game, sure, S tier. Okay? Easily. Right? If you're like pretty good, like you struggle at shield gating, so you need one of these frames to have an easier way to survive, like Gauss. Play Gauss instead. Gauss has the 100% damage immunity too against most attacks. You're just going to have to remember to shield gate when you actually do take a hit. You don't need Mesmer Skin. Now, he's definitely A tier. He's definitely top of A tier because Mesmer Skin, Mesmer Shield augment, that allows you to give those stacks to other people. Now, I love taking Revenant for alchemy level caps. And I know I didn't mention that earlier, but alchemy level caps are pretty fun because you are just throwing in the matching elements, and you can kind of turn your brain off and do that. When you don't have a Revenant on your team or an Octavia on your team where everybody just remembers to go invis from Octavia, you end up having to deal with enemies way more often, and then nobody's throwing in the elements. And Revenant just gives everybody that immunity, right? So everybody can just take their time and go throw in the elements, right? So for my build with Revenant, I don't stack strength like too high. I use precision intensify, roar over the 4, and because I don't need a ton of stacks on my 2 when you can only give 5 stacks with Mesmer Shield. He's a great frame when the goal of the mission is not so much about the enemies, because then Revenant can truly, literally ignore the enemies. So definitely top of A tier. Do I put him S? Like for just because of that alchemy stuff? I don't think so, because his kill power still is totally reliant on weapons. and you're gonna end up subsuming Roar, and that's gonna be like your form of killing. You could use the 4 to kill, and I've seen it done, especially in Circuit. Very good. The problem is when you're using that to kill, you're locked out of your weapons. So it's kind of like what's better at killing, the 4th ability or the weapons that you brought along? It's probably going to be the weapons you brought along, unless it's Circuit, right? So A tier, it's not even that fast either in Circuit. Like you can just get a decent weapon, and you're probably not going to play Circuit unless you have decent gear anyways. I'll leave him A tier. I think he belongs very top of A tier. King of the good frames, but not the best. But again, if you think you're trash and you really need help like surviving, because that is where the skill issue happens, S plus. This guy will take you there for sure. But this is a level cap tier list. Maybe try to improve at least. All right. Who else? I'm just gonna put this one in because Pillage is a popular subsume. I think Hildren's A tier. I think she deserves it. I don't like her kit that much. She is a little fun though, because her abilities do cost shield to cast, but her passive gives her that insane 3.5 second shield gate. Only Protea can beat her out with that time, but Protea has to stack shield bonds, like has to like go out of her way to make that happen, to beat out Hildren in terms of like the time spent shield gating. And if we want, I don't think shield satellites increase her shield gate because it's like set. Also, her overshields have shield gate as part of her passive, which is like really cool, great. And she doesn't need energy, which is like, problem is enemies will probably just hit your shields off, and that's like the fear, and that's what everybody like thinks, right? But you can get into a rhythm with her, and that's the main thing is the rhythm. So her shield gate is unique in that you don't the shields you gain after aren't immediately vulnerable because you're gonna get the overshield gating. So you get into this tempo where you use Pillage, it strips all the enemies' armors and shields, and you get it back because it pulls us back into you. And then now you're at full shields. Now they're gonna hit your overshields off, and then you're cast Pillage again because you pretty much always want this thing going off. And it's gonna touch all the enemies again, strip their armors and shield off. You probably want the Blazing Pillage augment just because it guarantees that you're getting shields back just by touching them, regardless of if they have the armor or shield. And now that you've cast it, they're gonna hit your shields off and give you that full large ass 3.5 second shield gate. And then Pillage is gonna return again, and now you're back to full shields. So you can get into this tempo where you're constantly just pressing Pillage, you lose your shields, you get them back, and you're pretty much never worried about it, right? So then the question is, what do our other abilities do? When you're in that tempo, that means you can't really use the 3, right? But you can use the 4. That is good CC. Well, I mean, you can't. You don't want to be stuck in that tempo, but it does mean that you're never going to die. So she has the survivability figured out. If you can be mobile, or maybe use Vazarin just once, right? She's a very domino effect type of frame. You can use a 3, use Pillage. Now you have heat spread. So if you do a heat inherit setup, you can get it so, you shoot the epitaph shot or whatever. Now all the enemies are primed with that heat, and then you use the 2 augment, and the trash mobs are gonna die. And then now you just need to worry about the single target enemies, but you're probably going to have a heat inherit setup. So you can do, I don't know, Boar Prime, right? Which is just raw heat, beam shotgun, epitaph, shoot them, and then they're dead, right? Like, she wants to have certain loadout to help her abilities succeed. But when you have that certain loadout, that kind of solves all the things she's missing. And it's not like rigid, but she's great at surviving. She has the ways to deal damage. She can clear trash mobs, and she's just weird. The people who like her, and I think it's deserved. I think she performs really well, especially in Circuit, because she has the Balefire, and they did buff that with the augment. So that gets me into the next one, Chroma. Chroma is one of the few frames that can take full advantage of pillage, almost like Hildren does, because Chroma has the electric ward, which I think is really strong. Like none of his ward element buffs are all that crazy. That actually, I'm gonna put him above Hildren, but because of that, that means electric ward allows you to have that insane bonus shield max, and when you have that, you can get that 2.5 second shield gating, and then you get to use pillage. And now the range of pillage, it scales off duration because it's a pulse, right? It just pulses outwards, and then as long as enemies are within the range of pillage as it pulses, they get their armor stripped, and then it comes back to you, right? So it pulses out at an 8-meter radius. So you can run minimum range, narrow-minded, with high duration and strength to get that full strip, which is exactly what Chroma wants to be doing as a Chroma player. You like most Chroma players just care about the damage that his 3 offers, and pillage helps really ramp that up because you're armor stripping. Now you're shield gating at 2.5 seconds because of electric ward, and you get to replace your you could replace your 1 and just leave it as electric because it's what you're going to be doing at level cap, just leaving it. Or you could replace your 4 because that shit's useless, but you could also just place it as like a, I don't know, do whatever you want with 1 or the 4. It's whatever you want to do. They're both trash. Those 2 abilities need a rework. His 3 is a lot better now because it'll stack, and you have guardian armor. So if you're playing in a squad, he does appreciate that a lot. But he has a way to survive. He has a way to deal damage, and everlasting ward is also like kind of nice, especially because it's just like, here, have free shield max, or here's a toxin ward build, have whatever the fuck you want. You know, the reload. He just helps. It's not that crazy, but it is something, and that's why I think he deserves A tier. Now Jade, I think is A tier. If this were Cascade only, easily S plus. Easily S plus. The reason why is because her Deathbringer buff on her 2 buffs operator damage, and it is the largest buff for operator damage that you can get from any frame. Volt's only a doubler of crit damage, right? And that works on operators. That's why he's great. But Jade's 2 buffs everybody in affinity range, which is insane. So everybody in your room and basically the room next to you, especially if you bring Vazarin to increase that affinity range, will be able to deal with Thraxes much easier. Like it's effortless. Like you could bring Sirocco and it would still work, right? Like you could well, I don't know, I haven't tested that, but still you could easily kill Thraxes with her. She's a little difficult though. Like, how do you survive, right? You're probably going to be shield gating with the 1, and that is a good way to deal damage. It is mostly through heat procs. She also has the armor strip with Ophantomize and can pick other people up. So if you're good at the game, I think Jade is really good to play to help other people, right? Because you can revive them from far away. You can boost their damage. You can also do the strength buff, and then you subsume Roar over the 4, and then you do the strength buff, Roar, then go to your damage buff, and that's a lot of damage. And it also helps allies. So for the sake of her ally buffs, great. When it comes to disruption, she is really good in speedrun setups where you're just buffing the shit out of a Saren. Saren does like that. That's very niche though. Like speed running disruption, it's more niche than level capping disruption, right? So A tier, definitely, for sure. Survival, she's also just kind of like, well, what are you doing? And using her 4, it's pretty fucking lame, which is really sad, you know? It's funny because she's like the third frame with exalted pistols that can fly. Like, come on. uh, let's see. Loki, also A tier. I kind of said it with Ash. Loki has tools to make himself invisible with his 2, and he can also make himself and another ally invincible with his 3 augment, and for a long time too. So for some niche strategies, that is very useful. Is it that helpful? No. Though, no. It's kind of the same deal as Revenant. Loki's really, really, really good at staying alive. And he can also make someone else stay alive really, really, really well. But what else? Like, what else are you doing? You got the CC on your 4, and you got the new damage decoy augment. That's pretty cool. It'll prime enemies for you, help you deal a little damage. But he's just like, he doesn't have the way to deal damage to enemies. There was the new, what is it, Crepuscular Arcane. So he takes advantage of that, but so does Ash. And Ash gets a CC buff. So there's no way Loki competes with Ash. I think we'll put Jade here. I think, yeah, that looks good. If we're gonna do order within the ranks, then do that. Yeah. Okay. I'll do Mesa. It's kind of like Cyto 9 without the invisibility, and just you shoot a lot of bullets instead of one strong bullet. But she can subsume over her 1, or you can do like a Ceto Altfire build with her 1. You can make it work. Lots of damage. You're probably gonna want to prime for her. She has great CC though. She can stay alive, and she fits the criteria for A tier. That, I think she's like center A tier. Mirage, kind of same thing. Similar idea as Saren. Like, Mirage just has an ass load of damage. Eclipse is insane. But how do you survive? She's fast because of her passive with the extra parkour velocity. But how do you survive? You probably want to just put Pillage on. But she doesn't have a way to like really benefit more from it like Chroma. So Chroma's buff isn't as strong as Mirage's, but Chroma's survivability is a little better with that setup. And Mirage just doesn't benefit from that. She doesn't have a good way to shield gate either, like Saren does with her 2 with shield gating, because all of her abilities have an animation attached to them. So I don't think she's deserving of S+ tier. Is she deserving of S tier? I don't think so, because all of these frames, they have their damage and they have their survivability too. And that's kind of the core of it, right? All these frames are missing one of those things, right? Like Jade doesn't have her survivability figured out, but she can help other people, like, you know, at least not have to use the revive, or go out of her way to revive people. So A tier is like, they have one of something really locked down, and I think that fits Mirage. Garuda's kind of the same deal. Where's Garuda? Yeah, Garuda's same deal. She's got the damage. She's got a decent way to survive. It's a little annoying. It's very spammy. You lock yourself out when you do it with her 4. She's also got the shield like Volt. Like Volt can carry his shield, and Garuda has like that same thing, but it has like a pivot radius to it. It's very, in my opinion, clunky, but she's got the fucking damage, right? Like she's got the slash proc, force slash proc thing with her 4. So if the enemy is able to be affected by that, you got the damage. And her passive, also insane. Infinite energy too, but she's a bit of a selfish frame. Is she helping allies? I guess technically with the 4 debuff. She's cool. Who else are we doing? Grendel I think belongs up here. He's got a lot of damage. He's got Nourish. You have 2 armor, well, technically 3 armor strips if you count the eat. But often what Grendel's problem is that his gut just kills enemies before he can get his freaking abilities off. So when you're going to level cap, the enemies actually stay in your stomach. So you get to like cast whatever the fuck you want to, right? Or just build up ammo for your... Is it the 3? Is it the 4 now? I forgot they changed it. It's been a while since I played them. that is a very easy armor strip to hit, and he has the OG Nourish. In my opinion, Nourish is better on other frames because you don't want too much viral, but he doesn't need too much strength either. Solid frame, A tier. He's got a way to survive. He's got the lowest shields in the game, which means with catalyzing shields, you can shield keep with him so easily. You're like almost immune if you do catalyzing shields with fast deflection, vigilante vigor, and then optionally, I don't think he needs it, but Aegis, put that on, dude. He doesn't die. His survivability is very good, and he's also like really health tanky too. So like for those early stages on your like pathway to get to level cap, bro, you don't have to worry about him. He just eats shit. Also, one note is when you use your one, that is almost as good as just instantly killing the target. So it can't be used on Eximus, but like you can just be like, oh shit, this guy's annoying, and then or just bring a weapon with secondary fortifier, shoot off the all that stuff, and then just eat them, and they're gone. You don't have to worry about them. You should have the damage to deal with it, but he has options. He's very cool, very niche still. He didn't have a popular release. I don't think a lot of people like to be the fat guy, but you know, he's a frame. Play him if you like him. Where's the faceless person? Degath. Degath, same deal. She has a way to survive. She has a way to deal damage. She might be S tier. Yeah, I'll put her S tier. Degath's very good. Her 3 is kind of like where a lot of her damage come from. It's got the crit damage buff, and with the augment, it makes you immune like on cast, and you can be immune for like 20 seconds, and then you just have to like kill a bunch of shit, and then you're immune again because you reduce the cooldown of 3. Very good. You can also just not use the 3 augment and then just use it as like oh shit, I died, let me just be careful for a minute. You can switch between the two options. Her 1 and 2 are also very, very strong. Her 4 is also an armor strip. In my opinion, you could just subsume over the 4 because she only needs to prime corrosive. When you're using her 1 and 2, that primes viral for you for free. And her 1 and 2 are pretty much double damage because of how Doom works, right? Doom, when you have at least like 250 strength or whatever, or maybe closer to 300, it just has like a hovering scythe over them, that one, and then that scythe like holds a copy of your damage, and if there's enough damage in the scythe to kill the enemy, it just kills the enemy. So very good. It is capped at 100, so solid frame. I don't think she compares to Saren though. Even though her survivability is arguably better, Saren's just got way more damage, way faster. Shield gates way easier. Degath does still need, like, if you're not doing the 3 augment builds, you need to figure out a way to survive. Okay, back to A tier. One thing I want to say, Kome, after I talked about Grendel, Kome belongs up here too. Like I was talking about with Jade, how she can buff operator damage, and not only for her, but for everybody in the squad. Kome is one of the other very few frames that can buff operator damage, and that is entirely due to decrees. The reason I have her in A tier instead of S tier is because you have to be running for a long time. So if you're doing like a relic level cap, she loves it because you're staying in the mission for like 4 hours, easily 4 hours for disruptions, and then like 8 hours for survivals. And Kome loves that. But when it comes to the Cascade mission, where you do want that operator damage, it's not as helpful because what are the odds that you get the decrease, right? You really just want critical frost and the corrosive one, because those are the ones that buff the operator, and then there's the fire rate one. If you can get those, that's insane. Like, holy cow. Her passive is also great. But the problem is that it kind of just stops there. Her 3 is really good if you do like what Grendel does with fast deflection, vigilante vigor, and arcane aegis, because her 3 gives you that chance to just heal from the hit. So if your shields if you're in shield gate and then you get hit and then that thing procs, like that effect procs, it'll heal your shields. So your shields just instantly go back up all the way to full. So you can kind of face tank a little better than you might expect, especially with the roll after receiving damage decree. That also heals shields if you use it. So she has a really unique way of shield gating. Her 1 and 4, like other people might have said, very identical abilities. Pick one, whichever one you like, subsume the other one off for anything else. It's your pick. The decrees carry her in level cap. Like absolutely carry. She is only as strong as the decrees let you be. So if we assume at least one rank in critical frost and the corrosive shots, and that's all you get, maybe 2 ranks, and the fire rate thing, very good, very helpful. And she has the ways to survive. It's just you're not guaranteed that at all. And if you don't get those, you're probably like B tier, right? She's an A tier frame just because of this, like she's got way more downside on the gambling than any of the upside. I'm gonna put Neja up here. The reason I am not putting Neja at S tier like Sevagoth is that he kind of relies on the weapons to deal the damage with his nuke. You can do the dark first build, that does work. It's just not as strong as, nowhere close to as strong as the as what you can do with a weapon. But is that like a downside? No, it's more of just like it doesn't work on certain enemies, like demolishers and stuff. Like you can't spear that and then get the benefit because he's really good in survival. He has a great way of shield gating with his 3, kind of like how Rhino does. It's not as good because Rhino's is pure overguard. His is that DR, but again, DR doesn't matter, so it's really just the health of it. So you can run low strength with the 4 augment and nuke, and his 1 is a free subsume slot, and his 2 is a form of damage vulnerability. Very cool. And it also gives you health orbs, so with equilibrium you have infinite energy. Solid. Citrine, also same deal. Does really good damage. Kind of relies on weapons to take advantage of the status chance and duration buff that she provides. That is a multiplicative status chance buff, which is insane, right? So if you wanted to deal with demolishers, you can. And you can also use your 4 to get that crit on them, but it's really like it's a little annoying to deal with that because the cast animation is so long. So you have to put like natural talent and like a tower cast shard on. A little annoying. It works. It's all right. I think she's A tier. She supports the team. Her 2 is useless at level cap, so you subsume over that. Free subsume slot, cool. Her 1 means infinite energy, and yeah, she's got the damage, and she can shield gate with the 1. It's kind of the same deal with Mirage. It's just like, I don't know. She's Mirage but stationary because of the turret, but you can put the turret wherever you want, and then you also have the 4 for good CC. It's all right. Talking about status chance, where is Caliban? Same deal with the new rework. He just does what he did before, but better. He's got decent damage if you can apply the Tau status effect, and then his summons actually stick around and give you shields. Cool. You now have a more reliable way to shield gate. Not much else to be said there. Lavos, I think, is deserving of A tier. Look, I said at the beginning, I haven't done an endurance with him. I don't like the cooldowns on the abilities. He doesn't vibe with me. So if you think he belongs higher, place him higher. I don't really know. He has the new augment that works kind of like how Saren's Toxic Lash does, but for any element. And if you put Piercing Roar augment with Roar, you can have that up permanently. That's Lavos though. You do whatever you want. He's got the dash too. I don't like him. This is the wild card. I don't know. Should I make a new rank for haven't played? Probably not. I'll just leave him here. I think he's good. Limbo, very easy to survive with. Good in circuit. You just have to kind of stand outside of your bubble and then take out Eximus units so that they don't kill shit. In level cap, he can survive. He has damage because of Cataclysm and or his 3, how that shit works. It's a little annoying. Um, Easy subsume over the 1, and yeah, his got like free rolling guard because of his passive. Cool frame. I like him. You have to know what you're doing with him a little bit. Like you have to really keep track of the dimensions that you're in and shit, and like where the Eximus are. Like how do you deal with the Eximus? It's kind of the question. But you can use silence as the subsume, and that just the Eximus don't use abilities, so that like that can really help, right? Especially when doing anything where you're trying to protect something. Okay, man, we already went through most of the roster. Ivara, no, who are we doing next? Nyx, A tier, got the rework. Her 1 actually like works well. Like you actually gain an advantage after you cast it. Her 2's not really overguard strip, but you can steal overguard and you can armor strip with it and you can shield strip with it. Very cool. You steal the stats too, which is like cool, I guess. Like thank you. And assimilate, you just walking immunity. Your 3 is also amazing CC. I think that is helpful even in a squad. But you're kind of just a walking revenant without the 2 augment. So A tier for sure. Does she have the damage compared to? No. A tier for sure. I'll stick with that. Frost, kind of the same deal. His 4 insane. Biting Frost, also insane. Especially if you know like the weapons that are bugged with it to get multi crit chance. Very strong. Especially after the recent rework where now his abilities apply the cold procs. His 2's not that helpful. 1 augment, really good now that it doesn't combine. He doesn't suffer the same issues as Volden and Ember do, but like with the bug, assuming that gets fixed, they don't suffer any problem. But cold procs don't do a dot, so it's not a bug that he has to worry about. So now he just gets a free element with his 1. Cool. Harrow, also A tier, has the immunity, but it with the 4, but it's not on demand, which is a little annoying. He has infinite energy. He has to be getting the kills though. So in a squad, like he's not as good as you'd expect, but he's very much a weapons platform. You can just buff all the basic shit about a weapon that you want to buff, and he's great. He's also additive crit chance. So weapons like Sporothrix and Kuvanukor, which have high multipliers but really low crit chance, love Harrow. Well, especially Sporothrix because headshots get that bonus. Where's the rest? Nova, A tier, for sure. Very helpful. Very unique CC with her 4. Her 2 can nuke. It's weird. Wormhole, very high mobility. Kind of the same deal as Gauss and Volt. Very nice. Styanax, he can nuke a bit. Gives overguard, gives infinite energy. People like him. I think definitely an A tier. Equinox buffs a little bit, kind of like Hildren with the whole shield thing and passive. I'm kind of blazing through these because there's not much else to be said about them. They're very straightforward and they've existed for a while. Durelli, the community probably still thinks she's bad. I don't know what's up. The Merulino augment, you're practically immune with it, and she's good. She's got the highest application of damage vulnerability in the game, like 200%. Very good. Good CC, good damage, able to go immune. I just don't think she's like S tier. Like she doesn't compare to these, right? Because they're debuffs. Like Rhino Roar's a buff. You get that for as long as it's up, going to room, nuking whatever you want to nuke, and it's there. But this one, it's kind of like how an armor strip works, right? Like you have to strip that enemy and then kill them because now you have bonus damage. But her passive is also helpful. So A tier for sure. Good damage, good CC, good survivability, but just not like crazy in any of those categories. Am I missing anyone from this rank? Oh. Where's he? Nidus. King of Survival. His passive allows him to survive. He's got the damage. You have grouping. Yeah, great. Is there anyone else? Oh, Mag? A tier, another king of survival, queen of survival, whatever you want to do. Amazing, amazing, amazing single target damage. Probably the best in the game in terms of like actual damage output. I don't think it compares to Saren, especially the ease of use of Saren. Saren's damage buffs are just like innate. You have those corrosive shards on, so it strips, so it's just easy, like instant, right? As soon as you're applying those procs, and you can easily get those procs by either applying Spore or just having a gun that has good status proc rate, right? And then the 3 just means you instantly kill shit, right? Mag has to do a little bit of shenanigans, like using the bubble, but when you put that on, especially in like, well, she kills groups easily too, but that's all she has really. It's just like that damage. She has good, no, she has good shield gating and the armor strip, but you have to be casting a lot. You have to be doing something a lot of the time, and that often keeps you slow. And she's not that fast. Doesn't even have a passive, like, to be honest. She does what she does really well, and not much else to be said about that. If you know that you want what she does, like, go for it. It's not really that helpful outside of survival, in my opinion. Like, you can do the other ones easily. It's just not that helpful. Have we done Korra? No, here. Bam. Korra, also A tier, very insane damage, especially with the Whip Claw. The thing I find redundant, though, is that Magistar is the best stat stick, even Rivenless, for Korra. But Magistar on its own, on any frame, including Korra, if you just build it for slams, it will also one-shot level cap. So Korra's one whip with Magistar will one-shot level cap. But you're taking Magistar. So, like, is that really that helpful? Or, like, is that Korra doing that? Or is it Magistar doing that? Because Korra could do that with other weapons. It's just not quite as big of a damage number, which I'll get into when I start talking about the B tier. And she's got the looting dome, which is really nice for survival. So I think she's good. I think she deserves it. She has the survivability with Venari and Protect. She obviously shield gates with the 1 by just spamming the shit out of it. So you have a way to kill. You have a way to survive, which is very important. You don't really buff allies other than, like, I guess more life support drops in survival missions, and you can protect stuff kind of because of just how much CC you have with your domes. It's not as much as like Frost, right? So I think Korra is deserving of A tier. Protea also A tier for sure. Supports allies with the 1. Original dispensary person, double the duration. Very cool, right? So you get a lot of energy out of casting that. And if you want to be campy, she's campy. The issue is dispensaries are subsume. So frames that do want to be campy, like Korra, will just probably put subsume when camping, right? It's not that crazy. So really, it's like her 1, really good in supporting people, especially in a campy situation. Her 2, very strong abilities. They scale. You need high duration, but they'll scale and they'll kill. And her 4, the 4 augment allows her 2 to armor strip, and the 4 augment can also, or the 4 itself can just nuke level cap, and it can save you from death. So she's got a way to survive. She's got a way to deal damage. Is it that crazy though? In my opinion, not really. She's not that crazy of a support, but I guess you could call her a support. A tier for sure. Who else? I think that's it. Oh wait, did I do Hydroid? Where's Hydroid? Another A tier. Great priming. Just innately has like the corrosive strip shards, right? With his passive, because he's like the OG one with that effect. I guess he has more looting with his 4 augment. It's not that great, but it's there. Great damage. Does he have a way to survive? I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I played him. I'm forgetting. I'm blanking. We are very far into this video. Very good frame. Okay. So that is all of the, oh wait, did I do Volvin? Yeah, same deal. Great CC, amazing damage. You just got to know what you're doing, right? He can survive through the insane CC that he deals, and not much else. Not much else to say. I think he definitely like deserves the spot in the A tier. I don't think he's that crazy though. I think he's bottom of A, but he's not bad. He's not bad. Okay, that's it for A tier. So B tier, I want to get into a phenomena that I see in the community, and I think Kalervo is the uh, best way to show it. So enemies in this game have, let's say a Demolisher under 100 million EHP. If you don't armor strip them, and you're fighting one of the tankier Demolishers, let's not say the Necromech Demolishers. Those things are absurd. They have, you can Zephyr Slam them. That's about it. But for like Kappa Sedna, shit like that, Lua, Apollo Lua, those have 100 million health. Kalervo will let you do 500 million damage with any melee weapon that you want to do, right? But his survivability is entirely based on overguard. So his survivability is bad, but his damage is insane, right? Like the numbers that you see. He is fun, right? I think he's hard to get to level cap to, but he is fun because you get to see those massive red numbers due to Wrathful Advance, right? You're just not gonna out DPS a Saren ever, right? Saren will kill that, like, whatever enemy, like a Demolisher, instantly, right? And then just move on, like, done, right? There's very low commitment. But Kalervo has to keep up Wrathful Advance, which is a lower duration, and then you get to do those massive, massive single hits. But if you want to do a single hit, like, kill, you have this. Now, I know he has, like, the chaining damage, and that is great. So does Sight, right? But his problem is the survivability is not there, and he deals too much damage. If the enemy can't survive that damage cap number that Kalervo easily deals, why do I care? Like, if the enemy only has 100 million health, I don't need to be doing 1 billion damage to them. That's 10 times more damage than I need to be dealing. So I know the community loves to see like that damage just get dealt out, and you see like all the freaking posts on Reddit. Oh yeah, look at this damage cap number. Like there was literally one today as of the 6th. You don't need to deal that much damage. So I think it's just it has nowhere to put it, right? You have all this shit, all this damage, but nowhere to put it. And that's why I think he's B tier. He's not fast. He relies heavily on overguard to survive, and all he's got is the damage part of the equation, right? It's rough because you literally only have overguard and Vazarin, and have fun spamming Vazarin all game. Atlas, kind of the same deal. He punches really, really hard, and he has Org Gaze, I guess. But it's the same deal as actually, you know what? I'm gonna put him in C. Atlas has to run the stat stick for him. I think it's Ceramic Dagger still. Just to make his punches like compete with the damage that Kalervo can do with any melee weapon in the game. So why play Atlas when Kalervo? And yeah, it just you can get to level cap, you can do it, but you're gonna have the same problems. So with B tier, same thing with Baruch. He does a lot of damage, and when you're at level cap, enemies can survive. You can stack up your restraint meter, everything you need to do. Oh my god, though, all you're doing is just using your 4. He's got 2 sources of damage reduction, but that doesn't really help. He's got great CC, and he can shield gate pretty easily. You can also use, like, you can bring evade to level cap too, or not evade. That's, you can bring that dodge ability that he has, and just, you know, I don't know, press it and then go run to the bathroom and come back. You know, usually people subsume over it, but Baruch just has all that damage and nowhere to put it. Honestly, kind of the same thing with Valkyr. She's immune, but you have to lock yourself into her exalted. And dude, I wish exalteds would just get freaking arcanes already. Like, they need to be full melee weapons because they are just nerfed for no reason. They're not strong weapons, just like Excalibur, right? Her slide attack, very strong. You're gonna crit easily with it because it's got like a 50% base crit. But all exalted melees have a 1.0 follow through, except for Titania's. But where? Oh, I forgot Titania. Whatever, I'll rank her after this. You don't have influence. Influence loves 1.0 follow through, but like you don't get that. You don't get to use that ever. So what do you do with those melee weapons on these melee weapon focused exalted frames? The rest of their kit is just whatever. Paralyzed is pretty cool. Her subsumed ability, Warcry, it's melee attack speed. That's pretty cool, especially in her. You get to use Arcane Battery because Warcry also buffs armor. So she just gets like free 1,000 energy max. But like that's all, like you just sit in your 4 the entire time. And you're immune, so you have the survivability obviously in check. But then what are you doing for the damage? You just swing in the one melee. In my opinion, very boring. I guess that's where my some bias, but it's also like you can deal way more damage with any of the Incarnon melees. You can deal way more damage with any of the glaives. Why lock yourself in to those sparring weapons? I know they're claws, but they have the sparring weapon stance. You could probably deal more damage with Venka Prime, right? If you want to say claws. Or there's going to be the new Kota Haruto weapon. Probably going to be able to do more damage with that too. You're holding yourself down. You know, you lock yourself out of options. I don't like that. Okay, I'll do Titania, A tier. Fastest frame of the game. Her 2 and 3 are both kind of poopy. Her 1 is free status immunity for you and teammates, so she doesn't need prime sure-footed, I guess. But it's really just you sit in your 4. You're in your 4 all game. Dex Pixie is really good, don't get me wrong. It's a battery weapon. You don't need to worry about ammo. Very good status chance. I think she deserves it. She's also very small, right? So she's going to survive pretty easily, especially if you run a pillage build. You got to figure it out, right? Like it's easy. She also gets a ton of fire rate from her 4 augment. So when running that, you can just that's your damage. Cool. She's good. Excalibur, C tier. I think that Furious Javelin, very good augment, gives you a lot of melee damage. But then if you use that with the Exalted, it's kind of the same problem as Valkyr. While Valkyr gets to be fully fucking immune in her Exalted, you're not. You get a ranged melee weapon, and we already have those. They're called glaives. So if you want to be the Exalted weapon Excalibur, then okay, it's just kind of sad, in my opinion. You can do it, absolutely. Like I said at the beginning of the video, every frame can go to level cap, even these 2. But you're kind of doing it despite using his 4 rather than because of his 4. You just have to give his 4 what it needs to work. And then you can also do a slash dash build, which I think is really fun. I did it. And you get to be your health is immune to damage while in the slash dash. That can keep you alive, and it just like kills enemies. It's kind of the same problem as Ash 4, where it doesn't kill quite fast enough for it to work. But it is good, especially with the Incarnon melee stat sticks. So if you end up using Magistar for it, why are you not just slamming? you know, like just slam and then use a slash dash when you want to be invincible. Um, yeah, I think he's C tier. Rest of B tier, Ivara. B tier, she has damage. She's just slow as fuck. I don't know how else to put that. Oh, she has invis too. Yeah, so she has the survivability. It's just she's slow as fuck, and you're probably gonna subsume over her 4. And you get to do the navigator shit, and you get to like pocket stuff. She's really good in survival. If you're fine being slow, because like you can pickpocket the air support canisters, and you can, and then you kill them, and you can stealth kill everything. So she's great. It's just super slow, so you're not going to be doing missions all that fast. She can make other people invisible, but it's really, really annoying to like line up the invis arrow or to like navigator it into an ally. It's pretty funny. She's got crazy setups that are just like you basically perch yourself up in your dash wires and then try to like kill shit through a wall like Sight. But hey, Sight 09 gets to be invisible permanently and kill shit through walls. And he's also not slowed down. So what is Ivara doing? Banshee, same problem as Kalervo, but a little bit of a better survival thing. The problem is not everything can be sonared. You can do the sonar stacking. She has the armor strip with her 1 augment. Her 4 is dog shit. And she has silence built in. But that's her subsume, so I don't know if that's like, is that noteworthy? Yeah, like it's cool that she has it. She's got a ton of damage, especially like weak point damage, shit like that. It's a lot of damage with nowhere to put it, is what I'm saying. And yeah, I think that's correct. Absolutely B tier. She just doesn't have like a good way to like shield gate, stuff like that. It's just a bunch of damage and nowhere to put it, and it's like everything that you would want sonar to work on, it just doesn't. I don't know. It's really upsetting. Gara B tier. She can nuke rooms. She can survive pretty well because of her dome. It's just her dome. Her 4 is not as good as Frost's dome at level cap, and the amount of energy you're spending to like nuke is a lot. Now she does have the Spectre Siphon augment, or yeah, Spectre Rage with Spectre Siphon, so she's got good CC. But all that's letting you do is just handle hordes, right? And it's kind of like, okay, like you're casting 2 to 3 abilities to kill a room, and you're expending at minimum 125 energy to do it. And yeah, at the very minimum 125 energy to do that. And it's just it's just not that helpful. She's got the DR. She can give other people DR. But again, DR is dead at level cap. I think B tier sounds right. Necros B. Good in survival, but you're kind of a blank slate frame, but you get more loot. You get more health or air support canisters. It works. Well, his 4's cool. Oh, and they added the new like summon damage thing. I don't know how they hold up, but he's all right. He's okay. It's just where's your damage coming from? And it's probably going to be like Skana and Karnan because you want that slash weapon. He's fine. And then Wukong B, he's got the way to survive, but he has no fucking damage to back it up. And what you compared to Revenant, like Revenant, all he does is survive, and then he has to like subsume damage on, or like has Reeve, but that's his subsume. So Roar, like Rhino does it better. Wukong can survive. He's got his 2 and his 3. Both of those makes you immune. But his Iron Staff's lame. Same deal as Valkyrie. Like give them a freaking arcane adapter on it. Like just give him the melee arcanes. He can survive, but his immunities lock him into abilities. Or what am I? Yeah, it locks him in, so he doesn't get to use his weapons. So it's not like, his survivability, like, it's guaranteed, but it's eh. And then his passive almost doesn't exist. Either you're not dying, or all it is just 3 free revives, and it's really just whatever. His one also just, it dies instantly at level cap, so you might subsume over that. Uh, he's really just a way worse Revenant, but he is a bit fast. He's a little bit fast, and that's why he's good at lower levels, because you get to fly and be immune. Okay, I think that Ember is between these two. I think Ember is like bottom of B, and that is because, first of all, her one augment is bugged. That used to be like her biggest thing, was that she was just the heat inherit queen. She kind of just does that. She has armor strip built into her kit. Her abilities all play around her too, but it's kind of like you get the benefit by using it, right? So you're kind of punished for not using it, but then when you do use it, you're punished for using that interaction. It feels really fucking bad. And honestly, if thermal transfer and shock trooper and fireball frenzy, let's say they're all fakes, that bug doesn't exist where the status damage of the respective status procs, say that actually worked. Gauss's 3 augment, if you only do the heat one, that's 75%. Hers is 100%. So Gauss, just like, he gets the free fire rate out of it. Honestly, like, Gauss does her thing better. Gauss also has the armor strip with thermal sunder. Gauss is way faster. Gauss has the immunity. She doesn't. Like, what? Why play Ember when Gauss? What does she offer you? And that's kind of my same thing with these frames. Like, you're kind of getting to level cap despite being Ember, rather than actually like benefiting from it, especially because her one augment is bugged. And I'm not using that to like dock her down, but all she does is heat inherit. But it's like, if you're gonna heat inherit, you don't need Ember to make that strong. It's already the strongest way to make any like bad weapons work, and Hildren does that way better because her kit likes having heat inherit due to the 2 augment, and also her armor strips better, and Hildren survives, in my opinion, better than Ember. So why play Ember? All right, Geyer. B tier. Her damage, no. C tier. Her abilities don't do much. Her buffs are cool. She gets a little bit of speed, and she's faster than most of the roster. But it's like, where is your damage going? It doesn't scale well. You rely on pillage a lot to like try and armor strip enemies and make them take damage and all that. Where is the damage going? You get cool, really flashy red numbers, and I think that's why the community likes her a lot, because they feel like they're doing way more damage than they actually are. She's got grouping. She has the electricity. Her damage can scale up, but then B Mag. Mag does it better. Mag will kill groups quicker. Mag can nuke level cap easier. Kind of the same deal. And then, I don't know if you want to compare to up here. Volt also kills groups pretty well. I mean, it requires a weapon. Gauss kills groups easily, right? Like, Zephyr also groups. Gauss can also group. You know, why play Geyer? Your damage is less. It doesn't compare to other frames that do similar things. She's just the worst at what she does, in my opinion. Same thing with the Inaros. Doesn't have a good way to survive. You are either in your passive all the time, or you're in Tornado all the time in an effort to survive. You need a gun with secondary fortifier. I think his survivability is just not there. It's just not there. Oh, Varuna. I forgot. I can't believe I forgot Varuna this whole time. Varuna's A tier. Really good with melees. Has invis for survivability. She's got the damage. if you want to do her 4 build, that's good too. That's really good in survival, especially solo. Um, you can do like some slam build stuff because you just force your weapon to have a 100% status chance. Pretty fun. But that is all the frames. I think that covers everything that I wanted to get through. This is what I think the tier list looks like. I think B tier and up, if you enjoy the frame, I think they are totally valid. You should give it a go. C tier, I think is like kind of rough, but if you have the setup, if you make it and you want to run it, go ahead. You know, D tier, I think these frames don't do anything. They do not provide you any benefit that is of any value. And that's where I'm at. These guys define the meta. These guys follow the meta pretty much, but just not quite to the same level. And these are all at about the same tier. These are all great frames. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you did, if you made it this far, that's crazy. I don't know, make a comment and say how cool Volt is. Volt is so cool. Anyways, that's my video. Check description for Twitch streams if you want to argue about the tier list. I'm down to discuss it if I'm streaming. No schedule, but it's there in the description if you want to watch.